Coming up next on the Union Label is a conversation with Chad Rennison, the business manager of IBEW Local 816. Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig, American Federation of Teachers retiree. My guest today is a guy I've known for a long time, Chad Rennison. He is the business manager of IBEW Local 816 in Paducah. Welcome to the program, Chad.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate you having me on.
First question, same one I ask everybody.
Sure.
What has the union meant to you as an individual and to the whole working class?
That's a pretty deep subject there, Barry. That's a deep question. Where do I even start? For me, personally, you know, I'm a kid from a rural county or somewhat rural county. I come from Caldwell County, Kentucky, little small Paducah town, Fredonia, Kentucky.
I know Fredonia, yes, absolutely.
And so, you know, growing up was mainly agriculture and that type of work around. I didn't know anything about the trades. I didn't have any immediate family that were in any of the trade unions or worked at any of the plants, so I was oblivious to all of this. I didn't know anything about it. And when I came out of high school, I was like most. I didn't have a ton of direction. I ended up going to a trade school for electronics over in Evansville, Indiana. Mm-hmm. Happened to, right after I graduated from there, I actually had an opportunity to go to work on a job up in Princeton, Kentucky, and it was when they were redoing the old Arvin plant and turning it into, at that time, was called Bremner, the cookie factory.
That's right, yeah.
And so I worked for a contractor over there on, as what they call a helper, out of the local 816 here, for about three and a half months on a night shift. Got to get a little bit of a taste of what it was like doing this type of work. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I applied for the apprenticeship that spring. I got in, and I've been doing it a little over 30 years now. And for me, it's meant everything in the world, because I think about that a lot, and I often wonder, where would I have ended up had I not got in this union? And I think that I can say that I don't think that I would have near the things that I have right now. Not that I have a lot, but I've been very, very fortunate. My wife and I, we've raised 2 kids, have a son, Shelby, my daughter, Carly, my wife, Charla, whose dad was a union coal miner, by the way. But nonetheless, it's afforded me, or us, a really good living to raise 2 kids. It's put clothes on their back, food on the table, shoes on their feet. But not only that, it provided us with some really good insurance, health insurances. And the whole time that I'm earning all the wages that I earned, getting the education that I needed through our apprenticeship, I was getting a very good pension paid in on my behalf by my employers. And all of that was part of a negotiated contract that my union, the IBEW and the folks here at Local 816, they negotiated for me. So I didn't have to do anything for that. I got that. And to say that I'm very thankful for it would be a huge understatement. Like I said, I often wonder where I would be had it not been for that. And I thank the good Lord every day for allowing me to get into this trade. When I first started, I knew nothing about electricity, you know, and I don't claim to know a whole lot more right now, but I know more than what I did getting into it. But everything that I do know is because of the apprenticeship that I went through the IBEW and Local 816 here in Paducah. Our local apprenticeship is what taught me everything that I know about the trade and what I learned out on the job. But once again, all of those opportunities were afforded me by my union. And that goes back to something that I stand very firm on, always will, is the fact of the amount of dues, the union dues that I pay in. It helps pay the bills for all the things that I'm talking about right here. It's an extremely small price to pay for what I've got in return for it. And I can never thank those who came before me enough for doing everything that they've done for me and my family. As far as what it's done for the working class, once again, that's really deep. But I think I think there's a lot of folks out there that probably have the same background as myself. Some probably didn't have it near as good as I had it growing up. I had a great childhood. I had two great parents that raised me, took good care of me. They loved me. I had a good experience growing up, and I know not everybody has that. But I also know that becoming a member of the union, it does become your family. These are the people that you know. They become your family. You're at work with them. You go to union meetings. You go to functions. And so they become your family in a sense. And they're people that you will know and you'll love for the rest of your life. And that's a great thing. So I think as far as what it's done for the working class, I think it's done so many great things that, once again, I wouldn't even know where to begin other than, the insurances, the pensions. It affords those people to not only have a good job and go to work every day earning decent wages or good union wages, but it also provides them with those benefits. And what that amounts to is a good living. It creates a good atmosphere for a family. It just creates a good atmosphere for life in general. And so I think it's done tremendous things for the working class. Once again, we should be very thankful to everyone who came before us. I tell a lot of our younger folks coming into our union nowadays, take a look at that contract that you've got right now. Read through it. Read and look at the things that you have in that contract and think about it. And think about this. You didn't do that. Somebody else did that for you. And the people who did that for you, they didn't even know you. They didn't know who you are. They had no idea you were coming into this union. But they knew that what they were doing was going to better the lives of lots of people. And it did. What they do, it's kind of like the old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I'm a firm believer in that. So I think for the working class, it has done tremendous things. But more than anything, I think it's improved the quality of life.
One of the things you mentioned that struck me is the idea that the question is, do young people realize what the union has done for them when they immediately go to work? For example, you get a young fellow, young woman, young man who works at a minimum wage job, flipping burgers, whatever, making minimum wage or close to it, no benefits, and then they go to work at a union job, and you've got these really good pay, good benefits, and they say to themselves, man, what a benevolent company I work for.
Right. Yeah.
Do you hear that?
I don't know that I hear it myself, but I'm sure it's said. I'm sure it's thought a lot. And so
well, I guess what I've talked to these are mostly in industrial unions.
Yes.
Factory workers. I think you guys maybe do a little bit better job of explaining to people about the history of the union and what the union's done.
Sure.
But again, you get a guy who works at a grocery store in Benton.
Right.
Goes to work in one of the Calvert plants, the union job, and they think, man, this company's just so wonderful to me.
Yes. I understand 100% what you're saying there, and yes, that does happen. And
so do you all educate? I mean, what I'm saying is this: do you all educate people that look? The union got you this.
Yes, sir.
Not the company out of the goodness of their heart.
Right.
If it weren't for the company, it'd be Walmart, everyday low wages for everybody.
Yes.
So do you all stress that?
Yes, sir. We do our best to. As a matter of fact, tonight I will be finishing up our class that our local union puts on. I'll be teaching it. I taught it for several years before I became the business manager. I worked for our previous business manager, Mr. Jimmy Evans, for 9 years
sure.
as the organizer.
Exactly.
And we don't have enough time on this show, and I don't have enough good words to say about Jimmy.
He'd be good to get on the show.
I can't think of a better one and someone better to represent labor and working people. But once again, I don't have enough good things to say about him. He was a tremendous guy to work for.
And he was a council delegate for many, many years.
Yes, sir, he was. Jimmy was very, very involved in all facets of the labor movement. Just just a great guy, very sharp individual, and once again, I couldn't have handpicked someone better to work for.
Yeah.
But going back to what your question was, yes, we do our best to try to educate our members, especially our young ones just coming in. I'll be finishing up the last night of the class that we teach. We call it new member orientation, and basically it's kind of funny how that came about, because I was working for Jimmy a few years back. Well, I think we'd been in office maybe a couple, 3 years. And we had people who were graduating, or what we call topping out of our apprenticeship. And they might get laid off or whatever at some point, and they were coming in to sign our out of work list, what we call sign our books, and you know, sign up for work. And they had no idea how the system worked. And so Jimmy and I talked about that one day, and we were like, you know, that's not their fault. That's our fault. We failed them. We failed them because we didn't educate them. And so that's on us. And so I talked with Jimmy, and I asked him, I said, can we put together a class and do something? And he said, absolutely. He said, I'm 100% for that. So we sat down, we started just crafting a class, thinking about things that we wanted to teach them. Number one, we do teach them about the history of the IBEW. We want them to not only know about why the where the IBEW was founded and when and all those things. We want them to understand why it was created, because there was a reason. And as far as in the IBEW's case, wages, yeah, they're always going to come into play. But I think one of the most important things that played a pivotal role in the movement to form the IBEW was safety. You know, the linemen were the ones who started the IBEWs. Much as I hate to say that with me being an inside wireman, but nonetheless, the linemen they were the first IBEW members, because back then you didn't have tons of buildings that had electricity, you know. And so you want them to understand what it was that pushed these people to form this union. Why did it happen? Why were they not good with just, hey, this is our job, this is the way it is? They wanted better. And a lot of it was safety in the case of the IBEW. They had folks that were dying on the job at an alarming rate. And it was just crazy. So we teach them about that. We teach them the events that led up to the formation of the IBEW, and then where we've evolved since then. And some of the things that we try to teach them as well are mistakes. We've had our share of mistakes throughout our years. You know, since IBEW was founded in 1891, we've made mistakes and things that we've done, and we try to look back and correct those mistakes. But we don't want to hide them, because that's one of the best tools of learning that you can have, is to look back at where you went wrong and say, what do we do to fix this and not ever do it again? And so we teach that, and then we crafted a PowerPoint presentation and a class to teach them how our local union works. Everything as far as how our book system works, our referral system, everything from how our insurances work, our pensions work. Oh, holy moly, I can't think. I'm trying to think of everything that we go through, because we take on a lot of stuff, and we try to teach them everything that we can think of. We teach them how to read their dues receipt. It's got a breakdown on our dues receipt of how much money you paid for your dues, how much went here, how much went there. We teach them how to read that.
That brings up another point. Detractors of unions claim that unions force members to contribute to politicians they do not support. That is not true. In fact, that's against the federal law to do that. Explain about how you've got that, number one, political contributions are voluntary, and number two, they go in a separate fund from the fund used to conduct union business. Talk about that.
Yes, sir. That's absolutely correct. That's been a huge misnomer for years and years, is that the old rhetoric out there from, I guess you could say, the union haters, the fact that we use dues monies and our members' monies against their will for political candidates that are not of their choosing. And that couldn't be any further from the truth. Number one, you hit the nail on the head. That's against federal law. You can't do that. You'll will end up in some major trouble. And you should. You shouldn't be doing that. So what happens is we have voluntary funds that are set up just for political contributions, PAC funds, things of that nature. It's on a voluntary basis. It can be deducted from their check each week. We can take, they can make donations, things of that nature, but everything that they do is 100% voluntary. They are not forced to do any of that, and that's a great point, because that's another one of the issues that we try to educate them on in our new member orientation class, is how those funds work, where that money goes, how you can contribute to it, but to also inform them that it is not mandatory, you cannot be forced, and it will not be held against you if you choose not to donate to it. We respect that. We honor their wishes, and that's just the way it works. So that does play a big role in the fact of giving your union members freedom of choice. You know, we talk about the political scene and how involved we are in politics, why we need to be in politics, things of that nature. But we also want to educate our members as to how those systems work, because we don't want to take anybody's money against their will, and we don't want to take anything from anyone and mislead them on how it's being used. That goes back to teaching them how to read their dues receipt. You know, one of the things that we tell them, this is your money. This is money that you literally pay out of your pocket. You should want to know where this money goes. And we want to educate them on how to find out, where's that money go? What's it used for?
You mentioned the word misleading. Talk about how misleading so-called right to work is. Explain that.
Oh, wow. You know, if you delve into right to work from its infancy, which I do not claim to know everything there is to know about it, but I have done some research and some history, and it's another one of the things that we do educate our members on in this new member orientation, at least a little bit, is the fact of, you know, right to work it dates back years and years ago, and a lot of folks say it's said to have a lot of racist roots to it, and I firmly believe that. It does. So without going too deep into it, the fact that it's misleading is just the name itself, right to work. You know, people think, well, everybody has the right to work. You had that already. You know, we didn't have to craft a law and give it this fancy name for you to have the right to work. Basically, what the right to work law says is that you can be a member of a labor union and not pay your union dues. And we can't deny you any of the benefits or any of the things that we give to our other members as far as the negotiated wages and the benefits package. Me, personally, this is just my opinion, but I think it's so wrong. Number one, like you said, the name of it is so misleading because most folks fail to educate themselves on what that law really means. And so that's one of the reasons why we try to educate our members on it. But the fact that it's so misleading is it's the total opposite. The name is total opposite of what it actually does to folks.
Exactly.
I feel like it's a union busting law. It was put in place to help weaken labor unions of all types, whether it's construction or industrial unions, doesn't matter. It was put in place to weaken unions. And I think once you go back into the history of it, you'll see throughout the years why it was put in place, because the union movement was on the rise at that time. A lot of minorities were joining unions because they were looking for rights in the workplace. They were looking to be treated equally and have decency and respect, have some dignity in their workplace. And there were a lot of very, very greedy people in the United States who were corporate folks at that time, and they saw that movement gaining traction. And I think they said, we got to do something about this.
So to sum up, if you work at a unionized job site, under a right to work law, you can have union one wages, benefits, vacations, everything without joining the union, paying union dues, or even a service fee.
That's correct. Yeah, and you know what's so funny about it to me is the fact of a lot of the folks, especially here in the state of Kentucky, back when we got that rammed down our throat in the middle of the night, and I won't skew off on that tangent because you probably don't have enough beeps on here to beat me out enough. But One of the things about it is the fact that a lot of the folks who back the right to work law in the state of Kentucky, huge advocates of right to work, just like the Chamber of Commerce. So what do you have to pay to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce?
There was a fellow, I can't remember who he was, and it was either Henderson or Owensboro, who was a union guy, and he was invited to join the Chamber of Commerce. And he said, yeah, I want to join, but I still want to pay dues.
I know the man well.
Yeah.
I've got the letters in my office.
Right. Now, who was that?
It was Mr. Gary Osborne.
Osborne.
He was a previous business manager of the IBEW in Owensboro.
In Owensboro. And so he sent him a letter and said, yeah, I'd love to join, but I don't want to pay dues. And they wrote back, well, you got to pay dues. And he said, well, under the right to work.
Yeah.
I remember that. What was their response? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. I have the letters in my office. And
so how did they respond?
Their response was basically that they didn't feel that it would be fair to all the other members for them to enjoy the rights and the benefits of the dues paying member. Yes. Oh, I'll let you see the letter
I'd love
if you'd like.
to see it.
Yeah.
It just, did he obviously didn't see the irony in that. It's like, I would. Yeah, if you later on send me a copy of that, that's
sure
something
will.
to see. So.
You know, it was actually used in the argument against the right to work law being passed in the state of Kentucky. It was actually used that day when they were in discussions over it.
I'd love to see it. I've heard it, never seen it.
Yeah.
Now the second law that they rammed through was the repeal of the prevailing wage. Explain what the prevailing wage is. And what this bill is about.
Yeah, basically your prevailing wage laws, they help keep decent, good-paying wages on jobs that are funded with taxpayer money. So it's basically you're trying to put taxpayer money back in taxpayer pockets. And what it does, it not only helps to put the money back in the taxpayers' pockets who are paying it in, but it also helps to keep good, fair contractors on your jobs doing good work on public jobs. So what happens a lot of times is you in the free market, I guess what you'd say, where there's really no rules and it's just, hey, low bidder wins, you have a lot of contractors, and sometimes it's said they're out of town contractors, but they don't have to be. They can be local. They come in, they use unskilled labor to perform the work. They do very shoddy work. They do a very poor job. They run off. When the job is done, they got paid, and then the owner has lots of problems. You know, they start rearing their ugly head once you get inside, you occupy the building, or you start using whatever it is that they built. And so you forked out all this money, and now you've got a building or whatever it is that you had done is in disrepair, and you never even got started using it.
And the money you thought you saved, you're going to pay it back to do the repair.
So the vast amount of studies that have been done on prevailing wage laws, and there's been several universities who have done extensive studies on the effects of the prevailing wage laws versus not having prevailing wage laws. And in the vast majority of studies that have been done, it's been a proven fact that it doesn't cost any more money to do public works projects, or any projects for that matter, whether it's federal or state or local. It doesn't really cost any more money in the end,
right,
by using good contractors that pay good wages and use skilled labor than it does by using these other contractors.
Well, it's actually cheaper.
Well, absolutely, because usually what happens in the end, then when that product is a terrible product, they have to call someone out to fix all the stuff that wasn't done correctly the first time around, and it ends up costing more money in the end. And there's actually been a couple of projects here in the Western Kentucky area that's fell victim to that.
I could name names, but I won't.
I know one right offhand right now, but I'm not going to call it out.
But, no, I understand.
Yeah, and you know the funny thing about it is that the project that I have in my mind right now, I think it ended up costing the taxpayers several million more than what the original cost was. So that's an issue. You know, now you're dipping into you're dipping into Joe taxpayer's pocket when you shouldn't be, and that's just not that's not a good use of public money in my.
We've got around 4 minutes left, and I want to get into this point too. Young people vote much less frequently than we old people do. I used to tell my students the reason that is because we're so old, all we can do is vote. We can't play ball anymore and all that. But and it's also been my experience in the union movement for many years that most people who are active, like in the area council, and like in your local, are older people. Now, I've asked this question many times, and nobody knows the answer, so you're not under any pressure to do it. But do you have any ideas how you could get young people more motivated, more interested in getting involved, not just in the union, but in politics?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we struggle with that a lot because we're no different than any of the other unions out there or any of the other entities, I guess what you would say. It doesn't necessarily just have to be unions. I think we as unions, we try to push it more than any because we know how pivotal politics plays in our society and what we do. It affects our jobs, it affects our livelihoods. You know, trying to educate our members on the effects of politics, on the effects that it has on our contracts, on our wages, on our benefits, our everyday life. I think educating them as much as you can as to why it's so important to use your voice. You know, I tell everyone all the time, we all, when we get a voting age, we have that right. By living in this country, we have the right to vote, and we have the right to vote for who we want, the party of choice, the person of choice, whatever it may be. Exercise that right. But I also always ask them, I said, educate yourself on those folks that are running for these offices. Educate yourselves on the candidates. Don't just buy off on rhetoric that you hear on the television or on the radio. Do some research. Talk to some people. Hey, if you can, get out and talk to that candidate in person. If they want your vote, they should be willing to talk to you. And so I think trying to educate them as much as possible on how important it is, but not only just the importance of it, but the role that it plays in their everyday life, whether it's social, whether it's at work, whatever it may be, trying to impress upon them how important it is and what a vital role that politics plays in their lives. And it plays such a role in so many different facets of their lives that they don't even realize a lot of times until someone brings that out to them and educates them on it. I've been through a lot of classes since I've worked in the office in the union hall about how politics plays such a pivotal role and things that it does for us. And ways to try to engage our membership more and more. And we've tried to push that out to our membership as much as we can. We could probably do a lot better job of it than what we're doing right now. And moving forward, we're gonna continue to try to educate our members as much as possible. But I don't know that there's any real. You can just put your finger on one thing and say, hey, Barry, if you go do this right here, you'll get those young people out to vote.
That's true.
I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I think educating them on the importance and also on what it does for you.
Yep.
I think that's got to play a big role in it.
I'm pretty big on education since I spent 24 years
I'd say you are. You know a little bit about education, right?
Yeah, I do the best I can. So. We're out of time. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. And hope we can come back one of these days. So.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, Barry. It's been a pleasure, and I'd be honored to come back. Thank you so much.
Outstanding. I'm Barry Craig. My guest today was Chad Rennison, IBEW Local 816. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.